When I came for the interview, my head was covered, and I was asked if I get the job, do I foresee myself presenting the program with my head covered? And I said yes. It was when I got the job, that was when the battle started. The BBC West Africa head called me to say, okay, this is the challenge. So what Channel said was that they do not have a hijab wearing person on their screens. It's against their policy. I think it was very depressing for me, honestly. And it's one of the reasons why I left the BBC.
There's a certain category of truths that are accepted as universal truths, and anything that doesn't conform, which doesn't fit into the norm, it's a lie.
Live it, love it, do it, clock it.
Hi sis, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to season 2 of the HSM TribeCast, the podcast by Muslim women for Muslim women. My name is Khadija. Today's topic is one that is both terrifying and incredibly liberating. We're going to explore the concept of truth, our truth as individuals, within the communities that we live, and within the framework of leadership and governance. Ultimately, we will find that being a truth teller is the most radical thing a Muslim woman can be in 2026. I have an amazing guest today to do justice to this topic, Zainab Bala, founder of the Scope Storytelling Initiative, a non-profit that platforms the stories and experiences of underrepresented communities. Zainab, welcome.
Thank you so much
Thank
for having me,
you for
Khadija.
joining me today for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we always have an icebreaker. We're switching it up this season.
Okay.
This season is themed My Era of Yes. So we are saying yes to all of the things, all of the fears that we hold back and really confronting them. So whether it's yes to truth, yes to faith, yes to life, whatever. What is one thing that you have said yes to?
Apart from the fact that I head my nonprofit, I also consult for a non-governmental organization that are based in Belgium. Okay, everybody's out there. We have this platform where everybody come talk about the work you're doing in your countries and things like that. And this year, we really wanted to just be a bit more in the spotlight to see that, okay, Nigeria is doing great on the platform as well. And so I did a presentation about that project, and it was amazing to see that even the leadership team commended the work and how that went as well. And so for me, I think I'm always shying away from being on that platform. And so I said yes, and so yes.
And that was a very big yes in
Yeah.
a grand way, because
Yes.
I thought you were going to say, I don't know. I said yes to not opening my eyes when my baby started crying in the night, waiting for my husband to go instead. But that was a really big, really, really impactful yes. So that's great. So like I said, we're talking about truth in all its forms today. And I think as people, the first interaction that we have about the concept of truth is probably in that early stage between, I don't know what, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4, 5 years old, where you're almost like smacked or beaten for telling lies.
Yeah.
Can you remember like your first, your earliest childhood memory where you were able to make that distinction between truth and lie?
When you lie, my mom used to tell me every lie is a thief, and so I didn't like to hear that I was a thief, and so
Because it's like if you lie, then you
you're
will
a
steal,
thief. Yeah, it means you can steal.
then you will kill.
Absolutely.
It's like, how did we graduate
How did we go
from?
from here? Yes, I think she always told me that, and that's really stuck in my memory.
One thing that as you grow from being a child and you're telling like those little white lies, like you say, trying to act smart, and you progress, I think that the nature of lies that we tell starts to evolve as well. It becomes, especially in your teenage years, lies because you're trying to measure up to peers
Yeah.
or to certain expectations.
Right.
And then you become adults, and it's lies that go to the fundamental, essence of who you are as a person. And in Islam, there's a very, very interesting concept to explain that dynamic. It's the battle between your nafs, your soul, and the fitra.
Right.
So, your fitra is your natural state, your natural inclinations in which Allah created you,
Right.
almost like, the newborn child or the very young child who doesn't know anything. And then as you grow, you start picking and almost like learning all these things that you come to accept as your truth.
Self, right.
As Muslim women, I think a lot of us, it starts with that identity trauma.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
said something at the beginning, how whenever you're in places like this, usually you're the only one. Do you ever feel that pressure when you're the only to almost like, I don't know, tweak or modify the kind of truth of yourself that you present to other people?
I think at first I used to feel that way, but over time I had to speak to myself, again, speak your truth, know where you're coming from, who you are, and what you stand for. And over time, I didn't used to feel as terrible as I used to feel in the past. So I can remember, I think last year there was a documentary festival that I was selected for by the Embassy of France, and I was the only person who was a Muslim. And I thought being the only female and a Muslim was just within the team that was traveling to France for that festival from Nigeria. It was very shocking, honestly, when we arrived in La Rochelle, and out of the thousands of people, thousands, I mean thousands of people that I saw there at the festival, I did not see one person that looked like me.
And it's France, which
It's in
is,
France,
you know,
yes.
with the
At least, yeah,
Islamophobia and
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
I was shocked to my bones. I kept looking, I kept walking down. I kept, moving on around to see if I could find somebody that looked like me. I didn't see anybody, honestly. And for me, I've taken that as it has become a push for me, really, because I feel okay, if there's nobody that looks like me here and I'm here, it means that someday somebody else that looks like me will be here. And so I take that as a motivation for me to move on. And unfortunately, I think what I've also learned is the fact that sometimes in some of these spaces, just because you're a Muslim woman, you have to do extra. You have to work harder.
Yeah, I thought I was the only one who
Yeah.
felt that. Like,
Yeah, you have
and
to.
it's an unfair standard
Yeah.
to put on people, isn't it? Like, you have to. I
Why
have a
do I
pet
have to do
peeve. I
extra?
have a pet peeve. My pet peeve is, and whether rightly or wrongly, you know when we say, oh, the first Muslim woman to do something,
It's
and
like,
now
okay.
it's not just the first Muslim woman. Oh, it's like the first hijab to do this or do that. And it's, yes, it's an amazing achievement, but really, why can I not just be acknowledged for what I have achieved
Right.
as a
A
human
human
or a woman
first.
if we must?
Yes.
Why must it always be attached to
hijabi.
that? But carry on, sorry.
Yeah, honestly, no, really, I think that's where I'm, moving to as well. So it's disheartening, but I think just like I've said, it has been a motivation for me to push harder. Unfortunately, I have to work extra. What others can do normally and be applauded for, it seems I have to do much more before I get the applause.
Has there ever been a situation where you, and I use the word lie very loosely, but essentially how a situation where there was a conflict between something that had to do with you and your identity as a Muslim and the situation that you found yourself, and you had to sort of like damp that Muslim identity?
Okay, I think I'll give a scenario. So I got an opportunity with the BBC Africa in 2023, 2022, 2023. And so the hub that I got employed for is in part the stories and the work that they do is in partnership with Channels TV.
Yeah.
So I can recall vividly that when I came for the interview, my head was covered, and I was asked if eventually if I get the job, do I foresee myself presenting the program with my head covered? And I said yes. That was not a problem then when I had that interview. It was when I got the job that was when the battle started. So I got the job, and then for my first story that I was supposed to do and also present, because we usually record at Channels TV instead, because the BBC just have a digital kind of hub.
Yeah.
So my editor told me that, okay, hi Zainab, you're supposed to record your first show tomorrow. I was giving the stipend to kind of get my outfit, and things like that. And we recorded that program. And I noticed that for 3 weeks it was not aired. And then I asked what the problem was because I just saw that there was something wrong, but nobody was saying anything to me. And then I asked, "Oh, okay, I've realized that this was not aired. I hope everything is fine. Was there something I needed to fix or do better?" And nobody was direct
Yeah,
to
they
me,
won't tell you.
yeah, to tell me that, okay, this was the issue. I was just hearing things all over the place. And then um, the editor then, the BBC West Africa head called me to say, okay, this is the challenge. So what Channel said was that they do not have a hijab wearing person on their screens. They do not, it's against their policy. And then I said, okay, so I recall vividly that when I came for the job interview, I was asked the same thing. But nobody told me about the fact that when your head is covered, they don't allow you to go on their screens. And then it was a battle. It was like, okay, we are so sorry, we are going to deal with this. I think it was very depressing for me, honestly. And it's one of the reasons why I left the BBC. um, there was a lot of back and forth to say, okay, eventually you can cover your hair, but there has to be a style, there has to be a way. And honestly, I think one of the major reasons why I had to conform at some point, my hair was covered, right? But the dressing style was not me.
Yeah.
But for me, the major reason why I stayed and I had to do it that way was because this is the first time somebody that looked like me was on that program. And I'm hoping that perhaps when I leave, somebody else that looked like me might be given the opportunity, because there was a lot of conversations around if really she's going
Because
to
it's
be.
a mixture, right? It's the
Yeah,
standard we spoke,
exactly.
the unfair standard you
Yeah,
have
and
to
it's
hold
like, if
yourself.
really this person is going to be able to do this, is she even qualified enough? Can she articulate it enough? Things like that. And so for me, where I stayed for a year and a half. And then at some point I said, well, and I had to push myself extra, do more storytelling. And I have a couple of the clips, and most of the videos I made I remember vividly, was around countering stereotypes around women, particularly in the North, bringing some of those stories to life. And for me, it
And you
was
feel
beautiful,
hypocritical
honestly,
about it
honestly. And
because you're saying this, but knowing that someone else is dictating
it,
what you're putting forward.
so those are the experiences, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the memory that I have, and I don't know if it's as weighty as what you shared, obviously, but I think that anybody who has gone to law school or who has studied law in Nigeria can understand the dread that Muslim women feel, sisters who covered their hair feel leading up to the call to bar,
Ah,
because you have to take it
the
off,
wig.
at least before Firdaus mask, some years ago. And I remember then I used to have those little conversations with my mom back then. And the fear of parents is like, don't make yourself the target. Don't be the one that they look at as it. Because I had so many plans going into law school for how we were going to revolutionize and we were going to demonstrate. And, you can't force me to remove my hijab for the call to bar ceremony, etc. And, that moment when you're walking into the what's it called, the International Conference Center in Abuja, I recall I was just like, so when you're like queuing to enter in, not before you get into the hall, that's when you take off whatever hair covering that you have on, because when you get into the hall, you're not wearing the wig because you haven't been called to the bar, and then you then
Put
put
on
it
the
on
wig.
after.
Okay.
So I was going in and I was like, my heart was in all the places, just running pita pata. And then, yeah, the moment came and I remember I took off my veil. I had this under cap that
Yeah.
people wear before they put on wigs.
Yeah.
So I had that on. I don't know, maybe the lady just looked at me and was like, not today, and she allowed me go in. But still, I felt
It's
so
empty.
exposed and like almost naked, I remember. It almost feels as though there's a certain category of truths that are accepted as universal truths, and anything that doesn't conform, which doesn't fit into the norm, it's a lie. There's somebody that just decides, this
This
isn't.
is-
Yeah, exactly. That's how it usually feels like, and that extends into my next point around sort of like um, um, systemic truths or systemic lies, and what that means within the framework of governance and society in which we live in. I think that 2024, 25, up to this year has been very, very glaring in terms of the complete breakdown of governance as we know it. I think that, well, I mean, Nigeria is a very, very interesting,
interesting
place
place.
on its own. But globally, there's a certain standard or a certain acceptance of, an international rules order that everyone is subject to, that everyone conforms to. And, this last 2 years with everything that has happened, whether it's Gaza, whether it's Trump, whether it's the world's going to blazes, it has shown us that those truths are only truths when they favor certain people or the people who make those rules. How do you perceive that sort of like almost shifting the goalposts when it comes to certain democracies, being allowed to do something and others just making it up as they go?
Yeah. Um, just like you've said, Nigeria, my country, my beautiful country, is
My
a very
motherland.
interesting place. So I just want to give an example, and I just love to give case studies because I think people connect more to experiences than just, verbatim telling them what to do or what it looks like. So I remember in 2022, I was selected by the US government to attend a fellowship in the
Wait,
US.
wait. Sorry, but
Okay.
no, this in the course of this conversation, I've heard you say Embassy of France, US government, BBC, Channels TV. No, my sister, take your flowers because no, carry on. I love a woman who's like I love it for you. Please go ahead. But I just had to say it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I was selected in 2022 by the US government to attend a fellowship in the US for 3 months, yes. And the people that were selected from the north, I think there's just four of us out of 59 people.
All Nigerians?
All Nigerians, yes. Most of them were from the southern parts, eastern parts, and it was just four of us from the north. And before then, I had no idea about how, the US systems work, how the culture looks like, how diverse they are as well. The US is very diverse, just like we are here. Perhaps Nigeria, Africa is a really little more, has more diversity than they do, but they also have that kind of diversity. And so there was a lot of orientation before we traveled. Everybody's different, respect each other's differences, and all of that. And there was also conversations around the fact that okay, they know that Muslims do not shake hands. Muslim women do not shake hands, do not love to hug, and things like that. And so I saw firsthand within that orientation, they made this red and blue tags. I don't know if I can call them tags. They're like very sticky notes that you could have on your face or any part of your body. And you can have the red one if you are a Muslim woman and you don't want to be shake anybody, you don't want to hug anybody.
Oh.
So when they see the red one, it's like
They just know not
and they
to.
look and say, okay, hi, hello. If you have the blue one, it means you're comfortable to shake or even hug, and things like. I was fascinated by that.
Yeah.
I was fascinated because within our own context in Nigeria, I don't think we respect that a lot. And this is our foreigners, trying to, respect that space and that boundary. And so I also saw that happen when we traveled in every like conversation, in some of the things that we did, when we travel, because we traveled around a lot. And there were instances where they say, okay, for the Muslim people there's a prayer room, there are places that if you're not comfortable being, you can excuse yourself. If you don't want to be in such, we visited LGBTQ communities a lot as well. And then there was that conversation around, if you're a Muslim and you're not comfortable, doing that, you could also, it was it was a lovely experience, because I think it respects where you're coming from, your faith. They're trying to uphold to your values as well. And so for me, I think that was eye opening for me. And then it left me wondering. And it's like, okay, back home, I don't think my boundaries are respected enough. And sometimes when you communicate them, it's like, what is this person feeling like? What is she feeling like? But other people, just because other people that are like me are comfortable, doesn't, we're two different people. And so I just feel, you know
You're doing too much.
exactly,
Yeah.
and so for me, I think in the corporate world internationally, I think I feel a bit more, comfortable and a bit more at home to upholding where I'm from, than,
And that's a pity.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
than back home here. I don't know if that's a good thing to say, but from my experience, that's what it feels like, for me.
What has, you've come through that phase from childhood to finding your own voice as a woman, sometimes compromising along the way. But I think that the thing about your truth as well has to do with the amount of power that you have at
Absolutely.
every point
I
in
agree.
stage. The more you're able to consolidate the power that you have,
Yeah,
the more you can decide what your truth will be.
absolutely.
If I'm the head of the team, I don't understand. I'm going to dictate the policies around, what
True.
happens. If
True.
I'm the producer of the show,
I'm the
I'm
one.
not going to be the one who does the policy that says you can't be on air.
Yeah.
So there is a direct relationship between power and truth.
Yes.
As a Muslim woman, what has stepping into your era of truth looked like in the last few years, especially as you get on a higher power standing, if we could say that?
Honestly, I think I can relate vividly to that statement that you just made. I think over time for me, um, with some of the accolades I've received, some of the work I've done in the past, and some of my achievements, alhamdulillah, that I've had over time, I think it made me come to a place where now is not that anywhere I go or whatever engagement I'm doing, I don't think the conversation now is about, okay, you're a hijabi and you can't do
Like we've
this.
moved on.
Yeah,
I like to think, oh,
yeah,
well,
I,
there are some people who still have to deal with that.
yeah, you
But
know,
it's 2026.
yeah,
Like, what are we talking?
about that.
Yeah.
I think for me, the conversation have moved from the fact that, okay, a hijabi, you can't do this, you can be part of it, or part of this. Sometimes a lot of people tell me, I know a friend of mine that doesn't like awards and things like. She's like, no, she's not interested in things like that. But I think those kind of things give you some kind of credibility, particularly if those kind of accolades are the ones you receive not just locally but internationally. It gives you that sense of credibility. I recall even sometimes accessing grants, like for my organization, when we are applying for a grant or anything, and some of the questions or requirements that you see is, what kind of international organizations have granted you in the past. And because it's a journalism development project, when you mention places like the International Center for Journalists, International Women's
Yeah.
Media Foundation, I was like, oh yeah, those are credible bodies. If they could give you money, we are open to giving you money.
Hmm.
you know
Yeah.
and so I think really, really connecting to those kind of spaces and having a place in those spaces helps you change certain things and helps you decide certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would say that for you, um, increasing your credibility or the authority
Yes.
that you bring
Yes.
to the table, as they like to say, what do you
Yeah,
bring
the
to the
table.
table? So the authority or the credibility that
That
you
you
bring
bring.
with you almost
Yes.
shuts down the questions that
Yeah.
people have about
Yes.
your truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a really good point to make because now I'm bridging into our own community as Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the conversations have been around, oh, um, you know, some of the things that you have to deal with as a hijabi or as a this or as a that. But a Muslim woman isn't, not every Muslim woman is a hijabi. Not every Muslim woman wears the hijab. Not, there's
Okay.
different kinds of situations that other people have to deal with in terms
Yeah.
of their truths.
Yeah.
Within the Muslim community, if we could start with that, um, there is a, and I know we like to gloss over it and pretend it doesn't exist, but there's a suppression as well of every individual's truth, which differs based on what stage they are along life's journey or faith's journey. Sometimes you're not Muslim enough for the community that you
Yeah.
belong to.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in other settings where it's like you're too Muslim,
Too Muslim. Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
in that setting. So
Yeah.
there's also that identity
Yeah.
issue that we deal with. Beyond that, even as women within the Muslim community, from a gender perspective, from an economic perspective, I think that there are things that we like to turn a blind eye to,
Yeah.
and we risk being accomplices. Obviously, it's the complicity of silence. What are some things that you've noticed within the Muslim community that we tend to shy away from? You know, those elephants in the room that we'll just close our eyes to. You know, as long as we do Allah Akbar together and we do, everything is fine. But we close our eyes to other glaring, deep, you know, differences that are not being addressed. Have you noticed any within your own circle?
So I live in Abuja, a very funny place to be.
Very funny. They said Lagos people have taken over Abuja.
Yes, so
You
I
even
think
now
they
have
are.
traffic.
Yes, so I live in Abuja, a very funny place to be, and I think the Muslim community, I don't know for other places, but for Abuja, sometimes I myself do not feel comfortable being in that community sometimes. And you see this happen when it's perhaps in Ramadan is mostly time where we meet, either for tahajjud prayers, tarawih prayers, and maybe there's a gathering within the month of Ramadan, and you see Muslim women. There's I don't know, but that's what I've noticed. There's it seems as there's some form of disparity in the way we relate with each other, particularly around if you are from a different economic background, or like you said, maybe you're not Muslim enough, or perhaps you are someone that others maybe in the community or in the cohort have seen or done something that doesn't look like it makes you Muslim enough, or it just seems like sometimes there's this, it feels like you don't belong. I don't know how to describe it,
I,
but
I, if I could try and understand,
yeah.
but it's funny because
Yeah.
for me it goes both ways. Sometimes I feel at peace. Like the moment I get to that airport in Abuja,
Yeah.
there's the air just feels different.
Yeah.
There's this aura of calm and
Calm.
peace
Yeah.
that just comes to me because Lagos is
Like it's
gra gra,
chaotic.
like it's chaotic. But at the same time, for me, what I've noticed is more a cultural thing, but it shouldn't apply to you because like you're part of the culture, right? But again, everybody's experiences
It's
are different.
different,
What
yeah.
I've noticed is that cultural thing between Arewa Muslims
And
and the rest of us.
there's that, yes.
Those
And it's
us-
like, yeah.
because we're not serious Muslims, obviously. but
I
for
don't
me,
know.
it's a cultural thing in
a
that
cultural
sense, which is very unfortunate in terms of Islam and the intentionality with breaking down those differences, especially cultural differences. I
Yeah.
mean, think about when you go on Hajj or Umrah and how everybody comes
Everybody
from,
comes,
you know,
whether
wherever.
you're, yes.
Right. So that's one thing that I've noticed.
Yeah.
But for you, it has to be different, obviously. But
Yeah.
I think there's also the classism,
Yeah.
the economic, you know, power
Yeah.
disparity.
Yeah.
I think that we like to, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be around, you know, people of a certain, what's the word?
That's a word.
Yeah, a certain world or a certain characteristics or
Yeah.
certain things that you want for yourself. You surround yourself with those
Yeah.
kind of people,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's that dangerous trend for it to fall into like the whole classism, the haves and the
And the
have-nots.
have-nots, right?
What, from my perspective, I think from a gender, when you look at it through a gender lens as well, there's a lot of things that have there's a lot of interpretations around Islam that you wonder who exactly brought this.
Yeah.
We had a conversation on the podcast in the first season around feminism, etc., and how a lot of the interpretation that's given to the Quran, to the Hadith, are things that obviously have been interpreted by men. A lot of things that have to do with women. So you're almost, there's like a intersecting layer of issues you have to deal with. There's the societal point of view, but there's also the religious point of view in which, you know, culture and every other thing has been diluted into it. And then there's this whole new truth that exists for what your bearing is
Yeah.
as a woman, even within your Muslim community.
Right.
So that's something that, for me, it's a shame, but it also lets us know that the Muslim community is not infallible to those kind of issues. In fact,
Absolutely.
sometimes I think they thrive even
Even
more
more than-
because we hide under the umbrella of religion.
Religion. Honestly, I think you've said it all. Honestly, because sometimes I feel like culture sometimes it seems just it takes a bit more toll on what really Islam says about, our lives and the things we should do and not do. There's a lot of mix of a lot of culture in the way that we do things, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, culture shouldn't take over what Islam says we should do.
Yeah. And there's also the thing about the cost of silence. We mentioned it earlier. When you turn away and you don't say anything,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
because it's
it's the norm.
so something that comes to mind very readily is you know, some of the issues recently where someone has lost their life through jungle justice meted out in a Muslim populated state, either because of statements or because of actions that were perceived to be against the religion. There's a part of me that just cannot reconcile the truth of injustice and people taking law into their own hands with meting out what they term righting a wrong that someone has done. You can't fight for Allah
No.
or the Prophet,
Yeah.
right?
No.
And you live in the north, you know, which has been the scene for some of these issues that I referred to. I think that in the Muslim society, we carry our leaders on such a pedestal because, I mean, yes, leadership is an amana and there is the right of the leader over his followers, but we tend to be quiet or silent around issues when they are perpetrated by Muslims, but we want the world to rally when there are injustices against Muslims. How do you reconcile that?
Honestly, sometimes because I work in the media space, sometimes when I read, the headlines or watch the news or listen to people talk, it's quite appalling, some of the narratives that you see. I can remember a friend of mine. I don't know. She's an acquaintance. She dropped me a message. I think it was a DM she sent to me. I think it was around the massacre that happened in Jos, where a number of Christians were killed in that scene. um, and then there was a lot of outcry around the fact that it was Fulani herdsmen. I think that's the statement, herdsmen. um, it was also about, okay, they were Muslims that perpetrated the act and things like that. And she dropped me a DM. I think she saw something on my story. It was a conversation around it, and she was like, it felt like an attack. She was like, if this happened to Christians and then they're speaking up, blah blah blah, it will look as if it's an attack. And I'm like, I'm a Muslim, and I do not in any way support Muslims perpetrating violence or creating some of the pockets of things that you see happen. I had to explain to her. I took time. I kept explaining, and it's like it's not nice for it to happen in on either side. I don't think we are okay to see that happen at the end of the day. But in every religion, there are good people and there are bad people, and you see that happen everywhere, not just locally but all over the world. And so I think what we need to be doing, or the conversations we need to be having, is about how to create peace at the end of the day, and how we can coexist as human firsts, before any religious conversation pops up. I think violence everywhere is supposed to be human and not just about religion or where you're from
Yeah.
or what culture you
No,
belong.
you're right. It's about being human first. And it's the danger of allowing another person's
Yeah.
agenda or truth
Yeah.
to become your own.
Yours, yeah.
Because that's where problem starts.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's also the dearth of education and literacy as well. If
Absolutely.
your truth is an amalgamation or a mix and match of the different agendas of different people that
People.
has been put together and presented to you,
Right.
then we are done for
Absolutely.
as a nation.
Unfortunately.
Um, this conversation, I think that it can never end, but some of the things that I've heard you speak about, just in terms of like how you've come from on that journey to finding your own truth as a person, and how you've been able to do that by leveraging the credibility that you have, what would you say are key practical steps for people who are still in that conflict zone? I mean, you've touched on a couple of them, but like very quick 3 points, practical ways to really align your values with the way that you live so that you're able to be a bit more authentic.
I think for me, you said three things, right?
It doesn't have to be three, it's less.
So for me, I think find a, I don't know, there are a lot of narratives around mentors these days, but for me, find a mentor.
Ah,
Find someone who can guide you honestly. Honestly, I'm saying honestly because I've heard some conversations around mentorship and things like that. Find somebody who can guide you honestly, someone you can always reach out to for guidance, someone who has your back when you need help. And I'm not talking financial, like not just financial.
or just 2K.
Not just financial.
Yeah.
Secondly, there was a short talk about conquering fear. I think that has helped me a lot, and that has what has gotten me this far. I remember when I submitted the entry for the award, the Elliot Award I received in the US. I felt unqualified for it. When I saw the entry, I felt I don't think people like me would be able to even make it to the runner-up. But
And yet,
and regardless, I never expected it. I just submitted to say, well, if I make it, if they choose me, if they don't, I just dropped it there and I even forgot about it. And Alhamdulillah, I got selected. And so I think conquering your fear is very, very important. Sometimes we feel we are not meant for this. We feel we are under deserving or not even deserving. But sometimes those things that you think you don't deserve are the things that Allah is pushing you towards.
yeah.
So regardless of what you feel, the fear you feel, the anxiety that you feel, I think you should go for it. I think that has helped me a lot. So conquering your fears, finding trusted mentors or people to talk to, somebody who has your back. One of my mentors is is an American, and unfortunately, I've not had good experiences with mentors back home here. And this American, I always like to talk about him because he's the person on my CV, and wherever I apply for things, sometimes these things they don't send you emails directly; they send it to the mentors, and most times I don't even know. They just send it to him. I don't have to send him a message to say, "Hey, have you checked your email? They've sent this," and most times he just fills them out. And I think the first recommendation letter he wrote for me, I cried because I'm like, there's nobody back home that can write this for me, and this person is not like I've known him for too long. And so when I say trusted people, those are the kinds of people, the people who will speak for you,
In
the
the
people
room,
who will
even when you're
stand for
not
you,
there.
yes, and recommend you, who would describe who you are. And sometimes when he describes me, I'm like, I cannot describe
So
myself
is
like
it
that.
me? Is it me you're talking about? So
Honestly, because you
yeah.
always say, Zainab, you're too modest. I know Muslims and Northerners are too modest. I need you to talk about the things that you do with confidence. Talk about it as if there's nobody that can do this except you. That is how we Americans are. So when you are invited for things or when you want to do things, talk about it, be confident about it, to say there's nobody that can do this except me.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are the things that people really want to see, and how confident and how passionate you speak about those things.
Yeah.
So I think for me, those are the go-to two things I would.
You've actually said three
Three,
things.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had identify what that fear is and
Yeah.
conquer it, face it head on. Find trusted people
Right.
who you can learn from or
Yeah.
who can help you navigate that process.
Absolutely.
And tell your story like you're the only person who has it.
Perfect.
So
That's
thank
it.
you so much,
Thank you so much.
Zainab, for having this topic and conversation. Um, as Muslim women, we hold an amana, a trust, just simply existing on this earth. And the truth is, you can't really fulfill a trust on a foundation of lies. Whether it's the truths about who you are as a person or the truth within our communities, um, you have to come back to the essence of what Allah has trusted you with and deliver it based on your convictions, and no one else can do that for you. I hope you all enjoyed this. Share, like, subscribe, pass this on to someone who is trying to deal or navigate within a certain situation as a Muslim woman. Until next time, enjoy life, love, and faith on your terms. Assalamu alaikum.